In a buzzing modern town where everyone knew everyone's business, lived a young woman named Daniela, a smart, stunning, and recently a proud university graduate, and was the pride of her neighborhood. But what people didn't see behind her success was the quiet sacrifice of one man, Clinton. Clinton was once a successful businessman who never went to university, but when Daniela had no one to support her university education dreams, Clinton stepped in, paid her fees, fed her, bought her textbooks in, and always said, "Even if I can't go to school, you will." But later on, after he had successfully sponsored Daniela's education at the university level and she became a graduate, completed some training, and had started looking for a work, as days passed by, Clinton's business got a whole time bankrupt that he barely made ends meet. But Daniela had grown into a lady of grace and education. As life goes on its pace, two men always showed up like kings ready to claim a throne. One of the men stands to be Fred, a loud, flashy guy who ran his father's business, came first. With his expensive perfumes and tinted SUV, he acted like he was born to be worshipped. While the other one is Alex, a smooth-talking graduate who recently returned from the UK. Polite, sharp, and rich, he saw Daniela as a prize to be won. The two of them didn't know about Clinton. All they saw was a beautiful graduate, and they were ready to fight for her. Meanwhile, Daniela's heart was already taken. Quietly, she still spoke with Clinton every night. His supermarket shop had closed due to financial stress, but his love had never wavered. He'd often say, "If your light is shining, then mine didn't burn for nothing." Daniela's father, Mr. Johnson, admired Clinton deeply. "He may not have a degree, but he's a man," he'd say. But her mother, Mrs. Johnson, had other ideas. She loved money. The moment Fred and Alex started visiting, she opened her arms and her purse. "Daniela," she'd whisper, "Clinton is nobody. No degree, no car, no future. Fred and Alex are men of status. Don't be foolish." What she didn't know was that Clinton wasn't sitting idle. In silence, he had crafted a plan. A bold, clever plan that would change the game and silence everyone who ever doubted him. And that plan, it was already in motion. The town buzzed with whispers. Daniela had two wealthy men chasing her, and everyone had picked a favorite. Market women gossiped, men in beer parlors debated, and church ushers smiled knowingly whenever Fred or Alex walked into service in fresh suits and polished shoes. Clinton? Most people didn't even remember him. Some thought he had traveled. Others assumed Daniela had dumped him. But in truth, Clinton had gone quiet, for a reason. He had come up with a bold idea, not a trick, not a game, a deal. One day he approached Fred first. They met in a quiet corner of town, far from watching eyes. Clinton was calm, almost too calm. "I see you want Daniela," he said with a small smile. "And I'm guessing you think I'm standing in the way." Fred crossed his arms. "You're damn right." Clinton nodded. "I'm not here to fight, but I trained her through university. Paid for everything, fees, books, food. It cost me $10 million in total." Fred blinked. So let's make this simple. You pay me $10 million and I walk away. She becomes your responsibility. No noise, no drama. Fred stared at him. "You serious?" "As serious as your perfume," Clinton replied coolly. A few days later, Fred transferred the money. Clinton then approached Alex. Same tone, same energy, same proposal. Alex frowned. "Is she for sale?" "No," Clinton answered. "She's not. But if I walk away, that frees your path. And I'm not walking away from a woman I spent $10 million on unless I'm refunded." Alex laughed at first, but jealousy and pride made him agree. He too transferred the money. Each of them thought they had won. Each believed Clinton would vanish. But Clinton had no intention of leaving Daniela. What he had now was $20 million and a clear path to build a life with the woman he truly loved. Daniela had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. Her mother kept praising the suitors. "Fred is planning to take you to Dubai. Alex said he'll make you co-owner in his firm." But her father noticed something different. "Why's Clinton smiling these days?" Mr. Johnson asked one evening. "He's probably up to something," Mrs. Johnson replied with a scoff. She had no idea how right she was. Clinton had always believed that loud men often made weak decisions. So when it came time to take the boldest step of his life, he did it the way he had done everything else, with quiet strength. He paid Daniella's bride price in secret. No noise, no crowd, no flashy show. It was a Thursday morning when Clinton arrived at the Johnson family compound, dressed in a clean native outfit. With him were two respectable elders from his side and a humble brown envelope containing everything required from the bride price to the list of traditional items. Mr. Johnson, already in the know, welcomed him like a son. His handshake was firm, his eyes proud. "You've done what most men wouldn't," he said warmly. "You trained my daughter. You never left even when money distractions came." But sitting quietly in the corner, arms folded and mouth tight, was Mrs. Johnson. She hadn't been told in advance. She assumed the meeting was a regular family discussion until she saw Clinton walk in with elders and items. At first, she scoffed, thought it was a joke. But as the elders unwrapped the items, counted the bride price in full, and began the traditional rites, the color slowly drained from her face. Clinton was paying her daughter's bride price, right before her very eyes. Daniela sat inside the room, dressed modestly in her native wear, waiting calmly. When her name was called and asked if she agreed to the man paying her bride price, she stepped out confidently, that her voice was clear, strong, and without hesitation. "I agree," she said. The elders nodded, prayers were said, and symbolic wine passed hands. It was done. Clinton had married her quietly, traditionally, and fully. Mrs. Johnson couldn't speak. Her pride was bruised. For weeks she had collected money and gifts from Fred and Alex, praising their wealth, laughing behind Clinton's back, calling him just a no future attender. Now the same Clinton sat calmly in her living room, a married man, without borrowing anyone's microphone. She tried to keep a straight face as the ceremony, but her shame followed her with every glance from the elders. Even the neighbors noticed her silence. Daniela didn't even look at her mother afterwards. She only walked beside Clinton as he stepped out of the compound. That night, the house was unusually quiet. Mrs. Johnson locked herself in her room. Mr. Johnson hummed joyfully, and Daniela, for the first time in a long while, slept with peace in her heart. The town still didn't know. Fred and Alex still thought they had a shot. But the game had already begun quietly and with grace. Fred could feel it. Something wasn't right. Daniela wasn't picking his calls anymore. Her responses had grown colder, shorter, and less emotional. The girl who once laughed at his jokes now barely reacted when he sent her surprise money or late-night texts. "She's just confused," he told himself. "Maybe I need to show her I'm serious." So, in a fitted white shirt and polished shoes, Fred made his way to the Johnson residence to speak with Mr. Johnson directly. He wanted to declare his intentions, maybe even drop a few more bundles of cash to win favor. When he arrived, he knocked on the wooden door twice. Mr. Johnson himself opened the door, calm and collected. He stepped aside slightly and gestured to the bench just beside the small porch. "Good afternoon, sir," Fred said, trying to sound confident. Mr. Johnson nodded. "Fred, sit down." Fred cleared his throat. "Sir, I came to speak with you about Daniela. I've been serious about her, and I believe this is the right time to ask for your blessing." There was a pause. Then Mr. Johnson looked him squarely in the face and said, "What you talking about?" Fred blinked. "Sir, you're late. She is already married," Mr. Johnson said bluntly. Fred laughed nervously. "Married? To who?" "To the man who invested in her future when no one else did. Clinton." Fred's jaw dropped. "Wait, that guy? That mechanic?" Mr. Johnson cut in. "Yes, him. He paid her bride price last week, right here in this compound." Fred sat frozen, mouth open, hands limp. "I watched you and Alex parade yourselves with money," Mr. Johnson continued, voice calm but firm. "But Clinton never boasted. He sacrificed, and he didn't come with a show. He came with sincerity. But Sir Daniela, she made her choice, and I supported it." Fred stood up, completely shaken. "But I gave gifts to her. I gave your wife money." Mr. Johnson nodded slowly. "You gave gifts to someone who didn't send you. My wife's greed is her own shame, but don't confuse kindness with permission. Fred left, crushed and speechless. 2 days later, Alex arrived at the Johnson house in a rush, irritated by Daniela's silence. He banged on the door twice. Mr. Johnson came out, holding a newspaper and a cup of tea. "Alex," he said flatly, "what do you want?" "I need to see Daniela. This silent treatment is becoming disrespectful." "There's no disrespect," Mr. Johnson said plainly. "She's married." Alex's mouth dropped. "Come again?" "She's married. Clinton paid her bride price last week. Everything has been done traditionally." Alex took a step back, processing the words like a slap. "That Portman? This is a joke, right?" "No joke," Mr. Johnson said, sipping his tea. "Clinton may not have worn a suit, but he built her future with his sweat. That's what mattered." Alex shook his head. "I gave your wife money, gifts I thought." "My wife acted on greed," Mr. Johnson interrupted. "Not with my consent. I'm ashamed of her. But that doesn't change the truth." Alex clenched his fists. "So all this time you people used us?" "No," Mr. Johnson said quietly. "You used yourselves. You thought money was love." Alex turned and walked away, humiliated. That night, in Clinton's small apartment, Daniela handed him a bowl of hot yam porridge. "You're still not allowed to move into our house," she teased. "One step at a time." Clinton laughed softly. "When the town finishes screaming." And somewhere across town, two suitors sat in silence, defeated not by luck, but by loyalty. The news of Daniela's quiet marriage spread quickly, but it didn't stir admiration. It stirred curiosity. The townspeople were talking, but no one really knew how Clinton had come up with the money. All they knew was that, somehow, he had managed to pay a bride price that most people would think impossible for a man like him. Clinton had quietly handled the transaction, but the details remained a mystery. No one knew where he got the money, and no one dared to ask. There were whispers that he might have saved up for years, or perhaps he had borrowed money from someone. Whatever the case, Clinton had made it happen, and the town had no choice but to accept it. "He must have done something to pull it off," people murmured. But how? It wasn't the sum that shocked them. It was the quiet manner in which he made it happen. No one had seen Clinton flaunt any wealth, yet somehow he had secured Daniela in a way that most men in the town would never have been able to achieve. His method had been so discreet that people were left speculating, but the truth was elusive. Back in the Johnson household, the mood was tense. Mrs. Johnson could hardly escape the questions. Every time she ran into a neighbor, someone would ask, "Where did Clinton get the money from?" She had no answers. The fact that Clinton had quietly handled everything without fanfare, without announcing it to the world, left her feeling uneasy. She had once thought Fred and Alex were better choices, but now she had to face the reality that her daughter had chosen a man who, despite his lack of outward wealth, had built something real. "People keep talking about how quietly Clinton handled the bride price," Mrs. Johnson would tell her husband. "No one understands how he did it, and I don't either." Mr. Johnson was calm. "It doesn't matter how he did it. What matters is what he's built for himself, and what he'll build with Daniela." Mrs. Johnson had no response. She hadn't been able to see it before, but now she understood what Clinton's quiet strength meant. It wasn't about showing off wealth or status. It was about steadily building a future. Meanwhile, Fred and Alex were grappling with their own sense of defeat. Fred felt humiliated, but he couldn't pinpoint why. He had spent so much money on a public display to win Daniela's heart, but now he was left wondering why he hadn't been enough. He hadn't seen it at the time, but Clinton had built something that Fred hadn't even thought to build, a quiet, solid foundation for his future. Alex, on the other hand, was angry, but he didn't know where to direct it. Clinton had done nothing wrong. He hadn't lied or cheated. He had just played the game differently, in a way that neither Fred nor Alex had expected. Clinton had quietly built his success, while they had focused on flashy displays of wealth. Back at his supermarket shop, Clinton continued to work with a sense of purpose. It wasn't about flaunting his wealth or gaining the approval of others. It was about doing what needed to be done, His supermarket shop was thriving, with new customers coming in each day. The banner outside read, Clinton's Supermarket Solutions, Precision, Patience, Power. Daniela visited him daily, bringing lunch and sitting beside him as he worked. She was proud of him, not for any grand display of wealth, but for the way he had steadily built his life. One afternoon she smiled at him as they sat together. "You're doing amazing," she said. Clinton looked up at her and smiled softly. "It's just the beginning." Daniela nodded, her eyes shining with pride. "Maybe we should get a bigger place," she said playfully. "Soon," Clinton replied, "one step at a time." As for Fred and Alex, the town continued to gossip, but the truth about Clinton's method remained a mystery. The only thing they knew for sure was that Clinton had secured his place in Daniela's life, not through grand gestures or wealth, but through hard work and quiet determination. Clinton had chosen a path that didn't involve showing off his success. He built it piece by piece, steadily, and in doing so, he earned Daniela's heart. The town may have whispered, but Clinton had already won on his own terms. The town had long stopped talking about Clinton's quiet success. It wasn't the whispers of jealousy or the murmurs of curiosity that had once filled the streets. Now people were beginning to recognize the truth of what had unfolded. Clinton had achieved something few could have ever imagined, not through wealth, flash, or force, but through steady determination and quiet strength. As the months passed, Clinton's supermarket shop and his way about with Daniela, which was not known at all to Fred and Alex, continued to thrive. Word of his precision and skill spread, and with each passing day, more people trusted him with his items. He wasn't flashy, but he was reliable. He was no longer just the man who had quietly secured Daniela's heart. He had become the man people turned to when they needed someone they could count on. Daniela, too, had grown into her role beside him. They had a rhythm to their days now, one built on mutual respect and shared vision. She helped run the supermarket shop, making sure the office and operations were smooth, and still brought lunch to Clinton every day, never tired of spending time together. One evening after closing the supermarket shop, the couple sat down for dinner at their small but cozy home. Daniela looked at Clinton, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I'm proud of us," she said, her voice full of warmth. Clinton met her gaze, his eyes calm but full of a quiet pride. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" They both knew that their journey wasn't just about love. It was about building something real, something that could withstand the challenges life threw at them. Their love was rooted in the small, everyday choices they made, not the grand gestures that often led to disappointment. Fred, still deeply embarrassed, threw himself into his business ventures, but his confidence was never the same. He had learned a difficult lesson in humility, realizing that not all love could be won with money or pride. It was about much more than what you could show on the surface. Alex, though he had never admitted it, knew that Clinton had taught him the most valuable lesson of all. True success was never about competing with others. It was about staying true to your own path and building your future, one step at a time. As for Mrs. Johnson, she had come to understand her daughter's choice. Over time, she saw that Clinton had not just secured Daniela's heart, but had also built a life that was authentic and grounded. Despite her initial doubts, Mrs. Johnson had come to realize that it wasn't the wealth you displayed that mattered. It was the wealth you built, quietly, steadily, over time. One afternoon, as Clinton and Daniela sat on the porch, enjoying a rare moment of quiet, they both reflected on how far they had come. The simple truth was that their journey had been one of patience, perseverance, and quiet victories. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more stories. Love you.